Welcome to our exciting new webinar. We're thrilled to have you here and can't wait to share valuable insights and engage in thought-provoking discussions. Get ready for a memorable experience. Grab a cup of coffee or tea and learn all about the social impact of tokenization and blockchain in general. Welcome at LiqwithTV.
Welcome everybody. This is our fourth webinar of Liquid, and today the webinar will be about the social impact of tokenization. Very excited to do this webinar actually. I will do it with my good friend Martijn Hekman, and today's topic again is about the social impact of tokenization. Well, what better we can do is to ask somebody who is actually with his feet in the soil in Africa, firsthand seeing what's happening there, and get a really good perspective on how tokenization can help Africa move forward in a much faster way than it was before. So yeah, I can introduce Martijn, but I think it's much better that Martijn introduces himself. So let's go and contact Martijn directly in Malawi. He is with us. Let's see if we can contact him. Okay. Yeah? Okay, Martijn, welcome. And it's so nice you made time for us. As I told the audience, it's best that you introduce yourself. Where are you now, and what are you doing at the moment?
Yeah.
And what's
Great.
what's your background?
Yeah, thank you for inviting. My background, I'm a Dutchman. Herman and I, we know each other and brainstorm a lot about innovative ways to make the world a better place. I'm now sitting actually in Malawi. And just to explain, Malawi is in southern Africa, near Mozambique and Zambia. And this is the birthplace, actually the test lab of a startup that I founded 3 years ago called 180.works.
Waniyaite ndikuyidziwa tinamva kulengeza kwa mfumu kuti kwabwera anthu ndiye tinapita kwa mfumu kuja. Tinapita kwa mfumu ndi amalengeza umene kuja kuti kwabwera anthu amene azikumangirani mbawula, bwezi mbawula. Ndiye waziwa kwake komanso anatipasanso mitengo yokula msanga.
Dzina langa ndine Miriam Muhango, ndimachokera muzi wa Lulanga. Tiye Lulanga yomweyo mboma la Mangochi. Chimene tabwerera apa fuati fotokoze mmene timamangira mbawula zathu. Chimene tikugwira ntchito ndi 180. Choyambirira timatenga matope. Timathira madzi ndi kusakaniza. Tikasakaniza ndi matope aja, timanyamula kupita nazo mkitchen. Mkitchen mwathu timafunamo njelo azokwana 26 kuti mbawula athu imangidwe. Tikatero timayala njelo zathu zokwana 9. Tikayala njelo 9 poyambirira pasi timazala chosapo ziwiri. Zimene timazifukuliraso pasi pomwepo zimabwerera pasi pomwepo komano tikafukulirapo. Tikatero timazayala so zina zokwana 5. Kenaka so 5 zina. Kenaka za 26 zimakhati kuseka pamwamba, kuyika mafuwa kenaka nkuzayika so ziwiri pasi pa zogwizira njelo zathu. Kuti tikamayika nkhuni zizikhala mmwamba bwinobwino. Tikauma mbawula yathu timazabowola ndi kuyikapo bluetooth sensor imene imatipanga likodi mene moto ukuyendera kuti katenthedwe ka mbawula zathu ndi mene moto wayakira kuchoka pamene wayaka kufika pothera ndi imapanga likodi.
Monga ine mayi wa makono sindiganisaso sobwerera pati pa mafuwa atatu chifukwa mmene ndikusangalira panopo kusangalala kwenikweni chifukwa chosanyamula nkhuni chintolo chachikulu ndikungodula tinthambi tating'ono kumaphikira pati pabwezi mbawula ndiye sindingabwerereso pa mafuwa atatu kuphikira.
Kale ndimati ndikapanga zimenezo ndimati ndikapita kudondo kujeti ndanyamula nkhuni zangazo ndimatenga nazo 3 days koma pakali panopo ndikutenga nazo 2 weeks ndikuphikira. Komanso ndikapita kudondoko tikuteteza za zilengedwe chifukwa choti awani 8 anatipasa mitengo yokula nsanga imene tikumangodula tinthambi take tikangofika kuyenda umo ndi umo kudula tinthambi tija basi tabwerera ndipo moyo wathu tsopano uli wathanzi.
Ndife osangala kwambiri foti ana samachedwa ku skulu timaphika Malawi pene timaphikira madzi osamba pene zakujenza kummawa samachedwa ku skulu komanso amapita mwachangu komanso amapita atadya ndiye ndife osangala kwambiri.
I've worked the last 20 years all over the world in the development aid industry. And I thought now with the new crisis of climate change, things could be done better. So we have worked on a model to regreen the earth, and that's why I'm here. And we have some thoughts about it, and we are looking of ways to do it differently. So,
okay, cool.
That's me.
But yeah, I know we talked a lot about tokenization, and you know, I'm really thrilled to share those thoughts with our audience. Just a brief overview. What we mean with tokenization is it's really, we talk about ownership, I guess. I mean, it's good for the audience to know that it's the trick with ownership is how can we prove that somebody is owner of something, and how can we transfer ownership with minimal cost, with the speed of light, all over the world. I mean, basically, I think those are the key elements that are, that what makes, I guess, tokenization so attractive, and especially when we talk about projects in Africa. I mean, I know that there are a lot of different ways we can discuss, about, we can do social impact on energy, we can do social impact on waste, we can do social impact on water reserves, but in this case, we are just focusing, especially on Africa, especially on what's happening with climate change. So, the next topic I want to discuss with you is, in my overview, it says financing the battle against climate change, like a battle. But tell me your thoughts about it, because I know it's also one of your concerns, and I'm just curious how you. What are you currently doing to make steps in this? In this area?
Well, it's one of the pillars why I decided to start this startup. Let's say the charity sector, I have implemented very large projects, but the model is either the government gives money to in name of us after they deduct the tax, or people give a donation, and then it's kind of, I call it the black box. You kind of never know what happens with your donation, with your gift. Because it's not linked to you anymore. It's in a pool of money, and then everyone has his reservation. Like, well, are they spending it wisely? And another thing is that what I heard also a lot, what I like is we're only going to save the world if we put an economic value on it. We Homo sapiens, it needs to be a model. Well, model can only work, monetization type of model, if you own. If you don't own it, it's not, the system is dysfunctional. Well, we need to prove ownership. What we now think is that there's a very unique moment in time where we are creating as humans, humankind, the largest industry ever, the CO2, carbon offsetting, to avoid the 1.5 or 2 degrees. So that's huge. There's going to be a huge influx of money. And that needs to be managed. But a lot of that money is not going to be spent next door. Let's say the Netherlands is very small. But Malawi here, I was offered recently here the size of the Netherlands of forest to manage and restore, 4.5 million hectares. Well, that's the play field. So at once, developing country have something to offer. They're not the receiver of a donation, but are partners. And I think that is a basis where you can then go a layer deeper, to finance everything. Is the proof of impact. You need.
The proof of, and I like the idea what you said. I mean, the cornerstone of capitalism basically is ownership. Is that you can prove that you own something, and that what's even better is that you know who are also the owners. I mean, the VOC in Holland, the first one who started to issue shares of a company. They had they started and they had 1,300 shareholders at that time, when they started. So everybody was committed to make it a success because everybody had skin in the game, basically. They knew that everything they would do would benefit everybody. So you can call it social at the end of the day. If you do something that benefits everybody, I mean, that's called a social venture, as a matter of fact. Let me see. We said. So what do you see as if you look at tokenization, and you look at the impact it can have in Africa? Can you elaborate on that? I mean. Can you say something on how important and where are actually the difficulties in ownership if you talk about Africa? What are the challenges?
So the two sides. The challenge is everyone is the same. The land rights is one, but if you do one step back, if you right now I'm not satisfied that in the Netherlands I can separate my garbage a bit and maybe reduce my flying, but I cannot actively own a project in let's say Malawi, and we will be soon working in 30 or 40 countries, and be a shareholder in that way, and that VOC model. And that for a couple thousand euros, for €1,000, I own the management rights of the reforestation of a hectare of land, for example. And I think that also gives commitment. I am not very committed when I fly and have to add €12 on my ticket because it's the black box again, and I never see that €12 back the result. And I think we need to go to that model. And right now, it's the rich or the fund, the big firms, investment firms, governments, they have the billions. But the billions are also with the billions of people. So if we combine that, and for example, right now I have a forest here of 70,000 hectares. I can split that up in 70,000 pieces, and have 70,000 committed people backing that up. And it could become ambassadors and updates, and we have satellite imaging and all kind of information and they could keep buying more hectares. It's kind of a social saving account. And I have people doing that right now, companies that share how many trees they have and their forest is expanding. That type of models is very nice if you can tokenize it. But that's also very practical on a money base. We forest, let it regrow, but people still need wood for firewood, for cooking and timber to build houses. And so we have plantations. Well, you could buy with us soon one tree. The tree has a low value at the beginning of maybe $1.
I want to address that one a little bit later, Martijn, if you don't mind. I mean, I know this is
Okay.
I think it's the most exciting part of this webinar, but let's just
Oh,
we get
you
there. Don't
just
worry.
do it again.
Yeah. No, because one of the areas, the focus on data science and proof of impact. I mean, I know that, for example, I saw on the website 180.works was the cookstove project. Yeah, I mean, it has a it's a carbon offset project. It's also in other ways it also just helps people, because if you have to carry less wood to your home to make food, to cook food, that's also like an extra advantage. But just tell me a little bit about, because we talked a lot about the data science, which maybe has not so much to do with tokenization as such, but it shows how important automation is. And it also, and I'm also curious, because I hear a lot of people say, yeah, but Africa has it's very difficult to get internet. Do people have the right telephones? I mean, we talked about this data science stuff. Can you just say the importance of data science in those social impact?
I think if you tokenize, you need data to know what you own.
Yeah.
So it is very much the basis, and that's also the missing link right now. It's the 70s in general of an Excel sheet that is has a few sample visits or something. Not good enough. Very risky for companies to invest in, because it's the risk of greenwashing, unknown greenwashing, because the project is actually not successful, is very high. So with our cookstove project, we are in the process of installing 1.5 million cookstoves here, and they are sensored with IoT Bluetooth sensors, soon linked to LoRaWAN networks, so we can kind of real time see all the time if the data, are people cooking or not. And that's a huge step forward, that not once a year someone comes to sample check like your tax people look at a few receipts and that's it then, but we know real time which cook stoves are functioning or not, and there's a calculation. Every cook stove can generate 2.8 carbon credits per year, and I think that's very powerful. But then you have the side also of what is very rapidly growing here is the whole mobile money. So everything is done here on a mobile phone. That's the bank, and almost no one has. Even me, for 1-2 years, I did not have a bank account here. I pay everyone on my mobile phone with money, and that's a great tool of where you could add a wallet and kind of reward people that work with us. We create a lot of jobs in the forest to work on the plantations that are joint ventures with communities. They get also share dividend, profit. We don't like giving. You work and you partner, and you lose or you win together. And I think that is our model, more powerful than the giving model. But then that means on an individual basis, I want to pay someone, and not to the whole system, which is often the corruption in these countries, is that the money stays up up the chain and not comes to our worker in the field, because the manager says, well, I want 20%. You want to pay the worker maybe on a daily basis, he shows up or not. Now there I see great ways of wallets on phones, people owning, and they can tell maybe Satoshis later. There's steps to be taken, of course. Because
it's amazing that people in here really don't understand how people in Africa are attached to their mobile phone. I mean, I think it's as important as food and water, the mobile phone. I think everybody who is able to get one will have one. I mean, as you said, they are paying with not, well, it's not real money, I guess, but it's like
for example, Malawi, it's Airtel or TNM.
Yeah.
So either data or minutes, in a way you could say call minutes, voice minutes. That's
voice minutes,
but just money. Malawi, kwacha, I upload and I can pay and I can receive. and it's the only safe place for people to have their capital. That account still is there even if the phone is not there. Not everyone has a phone. So what you see sometimes, 20 people have a SIM card, and then when they have to do a transaction, they click it in a phone and then do the transaction and then someone else. But over time, you see that's increasing every month. The coverage is, so the whole country has mobile networks, so that's also a step forward.
Okay.
And because the concept is already that the phone is your bank account, step to directly, I pay my staff directly on their phone. It's a good example. They don't every month they're paid mobile money.
So basically they are used to use their phone to store their wealth and their assets, basically. So it means that for Africa it is much easier, or that people will understand that, hey, if I have shares in something, if I receive dividend of something, that it's obvious, it's on their phone and not somewhere else. It's not on paper, it's not at a notary, it's not it's just
no, that's too expensive. That's not you go to. There's no there's legislation, but it's not a bank account is still special, and it's of course more and more people have it. But there's another. We had a devaluation here a few months ago, so the whole currency overnight was 25% lower in value, and it's going to happen again. Well, that's another thing where it would be interesting to have a kind of safe haven where you store your wealth maybe on another currency or over time. So we will soon have, for example, 1.5 million households that we deal with on a daily basis because they cook. We generate carbon credits, but we share those with them. One of the things is we will pay them on a monthly basis, maybe $1 or $2. But it is about getting that connection, and then we save also some money for them on a larger, because we say, let's say 100 families together, we have some saving for you, we buy a microgrid for you, so you have electricity in 2 years' time. But they need to do a bit both. And now, 2.5 years waiting is long, so that's a bit the now, the daily problems we want to help, but also the long term.
Okay.
Well, they could also own trees. Then the trees will be for them later a moneymaker when their kids are older. Or, there's all kind of options to play with.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to the ownership of social impact projects. I mean, you see a lot of. I mean, I remember I think it was the 70s or the 80s here in Holland, where we had this teak plantations where people could buy square meters in a teak plantation, and then that blew up tremendously somehow. I guess. Well, I'm not. Well, we know why, because there was no accountability. That money went everywhere, but to a teak plantation. So
that was the problem.
Yeah. So
and big scars. A lot of investors still struggle. This comes up all the time. So the ownership, that is what we just talked about. So if we can, you not own a project or something, but you own a tree, and you know what is the status of a tree.
Yeah.
We have virtual reality tours through the plantations. We can organize that type of things. A lot of proof. But another thing is we look for much shorter rotations. Like that teak, you have to wait 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, 20 years is a long time. Like nowadays, the whole investment cycles are about 5-7 years max. Well, we have the miracle tree, the Polonia tree, that's very much used. It comes from China. We're introducing it here. It's a very successful project for government, because basically after 2 or 3 years, let's say 3, we can harvest it for firewood. And there's a huge need. The cook stoves, they reduce the need for firewood by 70%, but they still need 30% that is coming from the forest. And we don't want that because the forest is almost gone and the world needs the forest to stay.
Yeah.
So Africa needs ASAP 2 million hectares of timber plantations and firewood.
That is Africa you're talking about.
So that is another example where, so that need to be funded. And again, I think when you then have smaller investors, and a lot of them, the risk is smaller, the connection is stronger, and you create some type of a marketplace where they could even sell to each other, then you take away what I need my money to fix my car. That type of retail investor that is. But again, I very much think there's a huge demand for that.
Yeah, I guess.
To be connected.
And how do you think tokenization can help? I mean, if I ask you, is it how would you see that happening? Is it like that you make a token out of every tree, or that you say, look, we have 100 square meters with an X amount of trees on it? On how do you envision that would work?
What we do right now, we have if you adopt a forest, and then it's maybe carbon credits for that forest be growing. It's per hectare. That's the metric basically. For timber trees, the polonias, which could be worth $50 to $100 each, it's per tree, because we know exactly where they're positioned, and they're 500 per hectare. Why not? Because otherwise the value will be high. And of course, there's companies that want to invest in 1,000 hectares. Then you're not. But we want to be on unit level. That's also our ERP system behind it. Is digital warehousing is capable of knowing per unit, and not in the forest. Forest is impossible to. Every tree doesn't make sense. So we also have adopters per hectare that pay X amount. But you can tokenize a hectare, or you can tokenize a timber tree. You could tokenize also a cook stove and say, I own and co-share with 180 and the community. The production stove is kind of mining, for the next 10 years, and they all have QR codes. So there are GPS locations. We know everything about it. Families.
So what you're saying with cook stoves is basically you adopt or you buy a cook stove and you share the revenue, maybe in the carbon credits or something like that, with the people who are actually cooking on it, and with for a little bit with 180. That's basically so it's really shared ownership of that. Yeah, because
right now what you see that the buyers buy the carbon credit also own the entity or the cluster of cook stoves. You can also say, well, we do 100 cook stoves clustered in a unit, and this production for the next 10 years, which could be an interesting investment, because now it's about $10 per carbon credit, but it could go to 250, 220 for a while. We will challenge you then as a co-investor, keep the money in the company for growth, for example, and so in that way it could be so. But there's a financial return. That's very every quarter will actually be calculated.
Yeah, what people don't understand so much is that in Holland, for example, if you create a limited company in Holland, you can tokenize it, and you are able to collect 5 million euros each year, every 12 months, from the market to invest. So and I think 5 million is exactly the amount that could make an impact. I mean, 5 million means, I don't know, just I don't know if you know that at the top of your head, but what do you think a hectare of this wonder tree would cost? Like, what is the investment needed for 1 hectare of those 500 trees? I mean, just I will not. You did some calculations on it, I guess.
Roughly 2,500 euros. We have to make the land ready and everything. So then it's €5 per tree. That's the cost to first year to really develop the ground, plant it, irrigate it, give the whole kick start. And then there's a very low maintenance fee for the years. That's basically you have to wait, but you have to protect it and secure it. But that's not much. So
what you're saying,
trees per hectare.
So what you're saying is that it's actually possible in the near future that people can buy for 2,500 euros a hectare of, it's almost like agriculture, because those trees will be cut because they are used for cooking, at the end of the day, and the thing with those trees
or timber,
or timber, because those trees they grow like wildfire. I mean, I was you told it to me, and I couldn't.
6 meters per year.
How much?
Yeah.
How much?
We have them already of 6 meters per year.
6 meters per year. 6
meters. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to make a differentiation. So you have firewood trees we can harvest maybe after 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then they are there are 3,300 trees per hectare, many more than the 500.
Okay.
You can sell them
there you go.
for about $5 to $10. That depends. The timber is more, takes longer, but that they're used, for example, for electricity poles here. There's a huge shortage of them, and they're about $50-$60. That takes 5-6 years. But that's also relatively soon, not the 20 years of teak.
No.
And there's a market for it. So very useful, and that protects the forest.
So what do you think, Martijn?
So that's a whole model that works together.
What do you think that this will happen? Well, when will this become available on 180? When are people? When are you ready to sell this to the audience? I mean, it sounds really, compelling almost. You know, it's like because what can happen?
Soon.
It's soon.
Soon, because we are now actually rolling out tens of thousands of those trees are planted, the Paulownia trees.
Yeah.
We did a 2-year research program. We got approval now from the government because it's not a native tree from Malawi. They're very excited. So that's really now we're rolling. We want to plant 100,000 hectares in the next years, depending on funding. So the trees will be planted already, because you can also step in a bit later. You don't have to we don't wait for you. We already can do the groundwork.
Yeah.
But we can go faster. It's all about capital at the end. If there's a backing of a large group.
Yeah.
I would say next year that would be the time to give this a try and find a community to become to own certificates in the project, for example, or tokenize it as an individual tree or per hectare. And just go for it.
Okay.
That's really not long term. Everything is there. The core is how you know how to grow a tree, and that you have the land rights done, and the lease agreements with the government.
And there is, you know for sure
type of,
that this idea of having this to have a company, for example, in the Netherlands, who is owning. That is actually that company owning the land, or is that company owning the what's on the land, on the hectare? So you actually don't buy the land, but you buy what's been.
Yeah.
So what does
Good
it
question.
mean?
Of course, that like Malawi, every country is a bit different, but there is a trend in general in Malawi. Also, you cannot buy land anymore. They're not keen. It was always title deeds for 99 years, but they're now down to 20. That's a reality. That's not. But other countries are still 40 or 60. But I'm not so impressed with that actually, because our rotations are so fast. Also for timber, if we harvest in 6-7 years, or for timber even, and for firewood in 3 years, I don't have so much risk.
No.
Let's say. Somehow the government doesn't want to give us our land. We just harvest everything and we stop and we go to another country. We do risk spread in multiple countries. Because it saves us so much money to not buy the land. If we can lease it for a couple dollars per year. Right now I'm leasing 2,000 hectares for make a new plantation, and it costs $1 per hectare per year to lease it. My capital cost is so much, investment cost goes in the trees instead of the land. And we are built for scale, so we really want to be very, very large. I rather avoid, and of course we have deals with the government, and there's legislation, and but that is also, in a way, we are less at risk by not owning the land, because otherwise we can never leave. If you just lease it, it's like renting a house. If you have a problem, you rent another house. Well, we harvest our trees and we go to another one. So it's a lot of flexibility to move around.
By the way,
and not pay millions for limited land.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Plus, the governments, we have another philosophy also. The government needs to contribute. This is about making this climate change story. That's the whole thing. So the governments here have no money to contribute, but they have land, plenty of land. So that is their contribution and their commitment also.
Okay.
That's maybe important to say.
Okay. One question is, if people invest, let's say people are going to invest in it and they get tokens, and then, for example, each token is a hectare. How do you get the revenue of that back into your wallet? Is there a way that you can buy stable coins in Malawi with local currency in order to pay out the revenues, or to, because I can imagine that it's not only people in Holland who will invest, but everybody in the world can basically invest in it. So then you also
in Malawi that people can.
Mm-hmm. Have you?
Well, the concept of a stablecoin, I think, is very interesting. It's like a stablecoin is about backing. What is the backing? Well, a currency, often at the dollar. But I think the first thing is that from almost nothing, from its seeds, you make a $50 electricity pole, and it has stages. You can calculate what is the value. The actual real money is only when you harvest. So that's the reality.
Yeah.
And in between, it is a value that could be part of a stable backing. Which you can transfer or borrow against, or it could be collateral for some investment that you want.
But if you harvest my hectare, let's say I buy 1 hectare, and I am entitled on the.
You do that
It means that I am entitled on let's say, a part of the revenue of that hectare. How are you going to pay that to me? In what way? I mean, is it in stable coins, or in what? In what is the currency that you're going to pay me in?
Well, yeah, I think let's say there's still a bit of resistance also. Let's say my brother, for example, if he invests, I use him always as an example. He said, I want to get out to fix my car if I need it to. So that the exit is important.
Yeah.
He's also a little bit like, I want to be paid out. I paid you in euro. Let's say, I would like the option to be paid out in euro.
Okay.
The stability of the cryptos is not so convincing yet. I think you should have a hybrid where you can give the option. We prefer. We want to create our own 180 tokens. We have to find out how we kind of link that, but we could pay you out in more tokens, for example. And they're part of the company. That you get kind of larger share, like when you invest also, you have the option of you get a 20% discount to buy more shares. That type of construction.
Okay. Basically, I know that you can have a lot of different ways of doing that.
I know about trees, sure. So I could ask the question. What do you think?
That's a good one. Put it in my basket. Yeah, I would say that because it's a Dutch entity, it's the Dutch entity's responsibility to pay out the shareholders. So you could argue that not every hectare is harvested at the same time. So you have payouts. Let's say you can have stable payouts because parts is sold as timber, part is sold as firewood. Again, if we talk about selling, I mean, selling means that you sell it to somebody who will pay you, as you said, $50 or whatever. That has to be invested back because you are buying back more, or you're putting on the same hectare another 500 trees. So it also means that you can use money from the new investors, pay out the old one, and keep the money inside. So there is a lot of
reality. Yeah, in reality, in many developing countries, it's not very easy to get forex out again.
No.
You can pump it in, but to get it out, that's why we have let's say our carbon credits are paid in dollars overseas, but then we have the local firewood business model. That's all created currency, but that can also subsidize other parts of the company.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the whole objective for us is we want to spend the money in the countries where we operate.
Yeah.
Because that's the big problem right now. Carbon credits, that money that is paid for that should impact the country where it's generated, and it's just not happening.
No,
It
everybody
stays in the
stealing
West.
it almost. Yeah.
That's really that's not controlled at all, and that's a big problem. That's why they now all collect the carbon certification agencies and projects, because there's no proof of there's no result, and that's why we have started to be the opposite, where data comes in as the it's not my blue eye.
No.
The data should tell. Yeah.
What about how is the legislation done in Malawi regarding crypto? Is that okay, or is there nothing, or?
That's stronger in other African countries where it's much more active.
Yeah.
Malawi is really one of the 5th poorest country in the world, and we also hear, because a lot of projects fail because of the mindset. This country should not be so poor because there's no war, everything grows. So that makes it also why it took a bit of time for us to develop how can this work. It's easier for us now to go to Kenya and others. So no, this is not really on the radar here much. It should be, if you talk about devaluations and a huge lack of forex they have.
Yeah.
Where you can see that carbon credits is very interesting for these countries because it is a source for the government also of forex.
Yeah.
So it's a complete mind change now. A forex here, but always the cost, and now at once it's the money maker for the years to come.
Yeah.
It would be tenfold development.
Okay.
So that government come now to Malawi to have carbon projects here, for example, the Swiss government and they bring in that knowledge a bit maybe of the whole crypto and blockchain and the backing of blockchain, and we have to bring that news. So we speak with the government about why don't you incorporate this type of. It prevents the corruption now. Land is a big issue, for example, and
but the thing is,
payouts
but the land, what I like about tokenization is that you can prove. Well, as long as you say this land is tokenized and that is legally done, and you have a token, you can actually prove without a doubt that you are the owner as long as it's in your wallet. Yeah. And previously that was very hard. If you start having 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people participating, how can you keep track, especially if you say parts are harvested, parts are not? How do we know that? How can we track ownership all the time? I think it's very, very interesting that, at least somebody in Africa knows that, and that we are trying to make this kind of experiments, because, the first one will be an experiment, but I strongly believe it's a huge opportunity. I mean,
and to start maybe at the fundraising side, that's where you can the crowd much more serve better way, and creating new crowds that are now resisting to give to charities, but they want to do good. There's a huge number of people.
But if you give money, but if you give money. And you can say, look, there is a big chance that you have a very good return on your money, and you're doing good for the planet and for Africa. Yeah. I mean, that's a really compelling proposition, I guess.
I love it. The black box earlier mentioned that is out, so we communicate, and it's, again, own something. It's a different feeling as that you give a donation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's different.
Well, and it's also when
responsibility. And we prefer, for example, not to get government funding, because government funding at the moment is so restricted. It always has 50,000 things you have to do. I managed 50 projects. Oh, you also built a clinic or something. Yeah, but no, I don't want to build a clinic. That's another someone. We focus on what we're good at. Yeah. So focus on everything being with trees, and then a cook stove, because the cook stove saves the tree, and that's our market, and in that we want to scale and do the same thing over and over. but we need funds for that.
Okay.
And the nice thing is we will be self-funded. The 5 million, well, we can kickstart in our financial models with 5 million. We can kickstart a new country and have a few 100 million revenue in carbon credits in 10 years' time. And that kind of extreme profits will be all locked into the foundation that we have, the 180 Earth Foundation. Mm-hmm. The foundation is managing the forest.
Yeah.
The forest is not generating money, mate.
No.
That is also not the purpose. You want maybe money for maintenance, then you're already happy that it stays for future generations. Yeah. The carbon engine, basically via the cook stoves, is
the way to go.
700 million cook stoves are needed for.
Yeah, and it's all of Africa. It's not just Malawi. It's all over Africa.
Oh, but also we're talking in millions of them. It's shocking.
Yeah, it's really shocking. Yeah.
20% of the air pollution in the world comes from cooking. Imagine that 1/5 of the pollution right now is because everyone cooks. And the most simple solution is not a big factory, it's just a cook stove for $5 to install. And the next day you have 70% less pollution of that family.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty really fast. So the sooner we in the world we implement those 700 million stoves,
the better it is.
It's needed, it's essential. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Martijn, thank you very much. I mean, we're almost at the end of our webinar. It's really it's such an exciting topic. I really love it. Just happy, I really hope we can get it done next year. That it's really up and running, because I think tokenization is cool in Holland and we can do businesses there and whatever, but the real impact is in Africa, I guess. I mean, once we get that one done, then people will understand how important is ownership. Sorry?
It will take away fear. A lot of fear will be taken away of far away, and distrust of the teak plantation of the past. If we do that better, I think that can be really. I look forward. It's going to be really an exciting example we can set,
okay, man,
and set a new benchmark.
I think. Do we have?
I go back to countries.
Just 1 minute. Are there any questions via the web? No. We have no questions, so that means that we come to our.
Who is available later?
Yes, of course. And I mean, we will have the show notes, so we will put everything that we haven't. I know one time you had this. I love that little movie that you made yourself, just showing how people taking that wood from the forest. Yeah. And I would like to ask you if we can use that in our.
I have a very good data today, actually, new version. I will send
send it. We can put it in the video once it's on YouTube finalized.
IoT sensor that now logs all the temperature differences. So the first time it's possible to really actually know are people cooking or not and how long. I think it's an enormous challenge and really fun also for the hackathon to really make a huge impact, because 3 billion people in the world are right now cooking on open fires. If they would have this cook stove, there would be an enormous saving of CO2 in the atmosphere. So it looks basic, but it's a change maker.
Okay, Martijn, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I mean, I hope to see you soon. Maybe when are you back in Holland?
In May.
In May. Well,
And,
we will definitely have a beer
let's
then.
catch up.
When we catch up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Change-
Okay, Martijn, thank you very much. Good luck
I
there,
like it.
and I'll speak to you later.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Okay. Ciao.
Cheers.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching. This was our fourth webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, again, just to summarize it, I think tokenization is extremely important for countries like Africa. Martijn stressed this again. And what is really nice is that we can all help just by getting shares in those projects that are now developed there, which are good for the planet, which are profitable, and which are auditable. And I think especially auditable, having ownership is key in this case. And with tokenization, it becomes a reality. So it's not just a gimmick. I think it's a necessity that we are seriously thinking on using this kind of technology in making the lives in Africa for people better, but also making the earth a little bit better place. I will leave it with that for this time. I hope to see you next time in our next webinar. Goodbye.